For the past year or so, Tokyo Revengers has been a series that I just haven't been able to enjoy to the degree that I did in the past. The manga material just isn't as fun or exciting as it once was, and this is a sentiment that I've seen a lot of my friends and just Tokyo Revengers fans in general share. So in this video, I'd like to take a little bit of time to explain and kind of talk about and discuss why I personally fell out of love with Tokyo Revengers. First off, before we get into my laundry list of reasonings as to why I just don't enjoy it anymore, I'd like to first clarify this. This isn't a video claiming that Tokyo Revengers fell off, or it's worse now, or it's even bad. This is just a video about me talking about my personal experience with the manga and the experience that many other people have had as the series has gone on. I am just talking about why I personally, as an individual, don't love the series anymore. And I think my biggest problem with Tokyo Revengers is the fact that it feels like it's been going on for too long. For the past year, I felt like Tokyo Revengers has just been going on too long. It's been extending the content of the series too long, and whether or not the author intended for Tokyo Revengers to be this long, or if this is something that he decided after seeing its, pretty successful manga sales over time, is something that I don't really have access to. I don't know the answer to that. But for me personally, I feel that especially these past two arcs have just been content that I just don't think was necessary to making Tokyo Revengers a good, well-written and put together narrative. I think that Takemichi has gone back in time to fix his mistakes just a few more times than I'm personally comfortable with, or a few more times than I think really makes sense. To me, Tokyo Revengers is a very simple plot, a very simple idea, a very simple concept of a character trying to go back and rectifying their past mistakes, doing their best to change the lives of the people around them and change their own life, right? That's, in the simplest way I can put it, that's what Tokyo Revengers is. And I feel that with such a simple plot, it gets the benefit of jumping right into the thick of the action, the thick of the mystery, the thick of everything it needs to do in order to be interesting, the characters, the dynamics between those characters, and all those different things. It gets to jump in that without a lot of exposition, without a lot of explanation and dialogue to get it jump started. But the downside of that is that I think such a simple plot, such a simple idea can get old very, very quickly. I think that the formula of Takemichi going back in time, failing to save his friends initially, then being able to fix that mistake, then going back to the future and rinsing and repeating and rinsing and repeating that over and over and over and over is something that for a while was very interesting. It was a very formulaic but very fun formula. The formulaic plot wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think that seeing the same ideas and concepts rehashed over and over and over and over again, it's just not fun anymore. It's just not interesting. It's just not engaging. I feel like I've seen this before, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, if you will, right? I don't get the same sense of excitement or enthrallment that I used to when I used to see Takemichi go back in time or go back to the future and see that he still messed up one key thing in order to save everybody that he cares about. This kind of goes into the point of thinking that Tokyo Revengers is too long, but I think that many character arcs that are going on right now, mainly Mikey's, could have been implemented earlier in the story alongside other characters' arcs to streamline the manga experience and not make it so drawn out. Because many people have brought up the very valid point that Mikey still needed to develop more as a character, right? He's always been portrayed to have this darker side to him, this negative, almost evilness to him, inherent to human beings, but more strongly this darkness is within Mikey's heart. And I agree that we needed to expand on that. We needed to expand on why this is the case and how we can save Mikey while knowing this is the case. But where I disagree is the fact, I disagree with the notion that Mikey needed this arc now. I think this arc could have happened 2 arcs ago, 3 arcs ago, or just work up to in a better, more cohesive, or at least more interesting fashion than it is now. Mikey's arc is necessary to his character, but I feel like this could have been shown to us or portrayed to us earlier on in the story by giving us these breadcrumbs or giving us more of Mikey or more of this aspect of Mikey and having Takemichi slowly but surely realize it and not fix Mikey in one arc, but fix Mikey over the course of the entire narrative of Tokyo Revengers. I feel like right now, because I feel the series has been so stretched out and it's going on for much longer than it has to be, it's overstaying its welcome, if you will, I've begun to care about the characters less and less. I no longer truly care about Takemichi all that much. I no longer truly care about Draken. I don't really care about Mikey. I don't really care about Hina. Over time, I've just begun to care about these characters less and less. I feel like they've just become so cyclical in nature, so stagnant, if you will, that I'm just not really able to enjoy what they have to offer me anymore. And this isn't to say that there's no development for these characters, or there's no changes, or there's no growth, but for me, I feel like any growth that they are experiencing or that they are going through is so minimal or so just insignificant that I don't really care to see it expanded in entire arcs. I just feel that a lot of the manga material is just not as fun as it used to be. And that's because, like I've alluded to earlier, like I've mentioned earlier, the cyclical nature of it, the very formulaic, simple plot that it has is not conducive to a long, drawn-out shonen. Tokyo Revengers, to me at least, is not the type of plot that can go on for as long as it has and still be good, still be enjoyable, still be mysterious. It just isn't. I just don't think that this time travel narrative is meant to be going on for so long, because with this, as the series is going on longer and longer, you're exposing yourself to more continuity errors. You're exposing yourself to more of the same formula to make me lose my sort of dream-like entrancement with it, right? At first, seeing Takemichi go through these things over and over was a test of endurance for him. Now I feel like reading the series is a test of endurance for me. How long can I read this series before I drop it? How long can I keep seeing the same ideas, the same concepts come over and over and over again before I just get sick and tired and put the manga down? I mean, Takemichi is really exemplary of this. I feel that Takemichi and the story in general reached its peak in the Tenjiku arc. And that's something that I think many people agree with. The Tenjiku arc is, I think, along with the Black Dragon arc, some of the best Tokyo Revengers has ever been in terms of art, in terms of story, in terms of character, in terms of narrative and mystery. It was just the entire package. And I feel like ever since that arc, Takemichi has either regressed or just remained completely stagnant in who he is. He almost seems like a caricature of his most prominent traits. He seems as if you were to take Takemichi, strip him of all the nuance, of all the character dynamics that he has with the people around him, and were just to refine him down to his emotional state, his crybaby-esque nature, and his determination. That is what you have, and that to me by itself is just not interesting. Now, this is where it gets into a lot of personal bias for me here, but I think that Takemichi's art of continuously relying on others and allowing others to hold him up is fine. The idea of dealing with your issues in a group and having a support system that helps you and reaches out to you when you need it is a good one. But my issue is I think that Takemichi doesn't do enough to help himself. He doesn't make the attempt to help himself. And to me, while it's something I could ignore in the past because of all these other flaws that I'm noticing, or at least I think that I'm noticing in Tokyo Revengers, or these things that I just don't enjoy within the series, Takemichi's flaws as a character, Takemichi's shortcomings, to me at least, are just becoming more prominent. Having determination and grit is perfectly fine. I think that's a very admirable trait, but I don't think that's enough to make Takemichi a character that I can read for 200 plus chapters. I mean, to give you a quick comparison, right? There are characters in shonen all the time that have a lot of grit, that have a lot of determination. Take an Ichigo, take a Deku, take a Naruto, right? These are all characters that to varying degrees have the same grit, have the same determination, the never give up attitude, the insane drive to help the people around them as Takemichi. But where Takemichi fails and these other characters succeed is the fact that they do something about their helplessness, right? They're not opposed to allowing others to help them, but they certainly aren't going to push their burdens onto other people. Ichigo realizes that to protect people, he needs immense strength, the strength to win any conflict. Naruto realizes that while lofty ideals are all well and good, he needs the power to be able to enforce those or save the people around him, right? Deku has to understand that heroes are people who save people, but he has to have the capabilities to do so. He has to be a strong enough hero to save those other people. Just wanting to save people, just having a lot of determination and a lot of desire to do something does not mean you will succeed in your goals. And I think that the key piece of Takemichi that's missing is the self-improvement aspect of himself. These things have all been very big problems for me with Tokyo Revengers, but these other two things are probably some of the biggest contributors alongside the fact that I think it's just been going on for too long. And these two things I'll pair together. The reading of Tokyo Revengers weekly is just not nearly as fun as binging the manga. And that may seem obvious, but certain manga aren't like that, or certain manga are at least fine to read on a weekly basis. Jujutsu Kaisen, for example, is a manga that I really do enjoy reading on a weekly basis. And I think I honestly enjoy it a little bit more on a weekly read than I do on a binge. But Tokyo Revengers is just not one of those manga. It's just not very conducive to that, and I just don't enjoy it all that much. And while I would like to let the chapters stack up, I'm already caught up with the series. I'm already here. I just feel like I have to read it until the story finally plays the way out. But it's just not a very fun weekly read, and I feel like if you haven't binged Tokyo Revengers yet, I'd honestly say you're going to enjoy it much more on a binge than you will on a weekly read. At least if my experience is indicative of anything. And the second part to this criticism, or this, I guess, problem I had that made me just less interested, is the fact that the mystery elements of the manga have definitely been watered down in the Bonten and Three Deities arcs. I feel like in the Tenjiku arc, it was the peak of mystery. It was the peak of everything kind of culminating into this very insanely intriguing narrative, right? Is there another time traveler? Are these people possibly going to be interfering with Takemichi? What is going on? How did this even happen? These are things that are kind of brought up and alluded to in the Tenjiku arc, and I feel like in these past few arcs, the mystery element has just been watered down or almost erased completely. And that mystery element was something that I think contributed quite a bit to my enjoyment of the manga. Tokyo Revengers was never a manga that I think action was its prominent or strong suit, if you will. We certainly got cool action panels with Mikey throwing kicks and things like that, but the mystery was always the more engaging aspect of the story. And for that to be watered down to almost nothing, at least in my view, is just disappointing. While Tokyo Revengers is definitely not a bad story by any means, the past few arcs of the series have slowly but surely made me lose passion and excitement for this manga. For all of the reasons that I've listed above, I have to say that Tokyo Revengers right now is not a series that I can truly enjoy. I hope that within a year's time, or by the time the series ends, I can make a video talking about how the series redeemed itself in my eyes and reinvigorated my passion for it. But for now though, I've fallen out of love with Tokyo Revengers, and it doesn't really look like the love for that manga is coming back anytime soon.